All right, guys, David here. Thanks for clicking on the video. Today I'll be going over a different network configuration. Okay. Um, so yeah, we have Inter-Vlan routing on each of these L3 switches, and I have OSPF configured for just routing between all these networks. Okay. So on each switch, we have inter-VLAN routing going on, right? So that the VLANs can communicate. Now to get across the network, they need OSPF for that. So I'll be showing you how I configured uh, inter-VLAN routing from scratch and also OSPF from scratch. But I'll only be doing that on this switch right here, which is network 1. Um, and then we're gonna see everything communicate. We're gonna be able to ping across the network. I'll show you the OSPF adjacencies form in. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's get into it. All right, guys. So we're gonna start over here at the top with this switch name network 1. It's a layer 3 switch, so it's able to perform some layer 3 responsibilities. Okay. So we're just gonna go in here. What I have done is I actually so this was fully configured before, but I kind of broke it. So we're going to walk through fixing this together. Okay. So pretty much, what we have to do, so we can see that we have VLAN 10, VLAN 20, and VLAN 30. All right. That should be configured on this switch. So I'll go ahead and do that first. Go configure terminal, and then VLAN 10, VLAN 20, and that's how you create VLANs. It's just making a statement. Okay, so now we have our VLANs configured or created. Next thing that we're going to do is for inter-VLAN routing, we need to create SVIs, also known as switch virtual interfaces. Okay, and what that does is it just allows our VLANs to communicate in that switch. Okay, but they cannot really communicate with anything else outside of that switch, unless there's some type of dynamic routing or static routing configured. Okay, which we're going to be doing dynamic routing today. So let's just get started with creating the SVIs. So the VLANs are already created. So if I do show VLAN here, we can see that we have our VLANs. Now the next thing that I'm gonna do is actually make sure that these ports that the PCs are connecting to have access to the VLANs. Okay, so we know that let me do this. Okay, so we know VLAN 10 is using port 1 and port 2. Okay, so once the VLAN is created, what you want to do is just go in here and I'm going to do interface range and then port 1 to 2. So we're going to give that access to VLAN 10. So we're going to say switch port access VLAN 10. Okay. Okay. And right here, that's going to be port 4, or you can see that, in port 5 on the switch. So I'll go interface range. I think, what was that, port 4 and 5? Okay. And then I'll say switch port access VLAN 20. Okay. All right. And then for these guys over here, they're using port 8 and port 7. So I'll just say port 7 to 8. VLAN access 30. Switch port access VLAN 30. Okay. That way, once we set up the virtual interfaces, switch virtual interfaces, they will be able to communicate, okay, with each other. So, and these already have static IPs assigned to them, okay, for the VLAN, okay. All right. Now, what I'll do is create the SVI, okay. We're gonna go, and this is just a command that you have to enter for that. So you're gonna do interface VLAN 10, okay. You can see the first thing that we did was create the VLAN, which was just the VLAN 10 command, and now to create the interface, it's gonna be interface VLAN 10, okay. So when you do that, you see it says interface popped up right there, and we're only doing this on this switch, okay. Now what we want to do is since we have an interface for VLAN 10, we want to assign that an IP address, okay? Because the whatever devices have access to VLAN 10, they'd use that IP address that we set for the interface, the virtual interface, as their gateway, okay? So we're going to do our IP address 192.168.10.1 for VLAN 10, okay? Oh, and once you enter the IP address, you want to enter the subnet mask, okay? So this is a /24 network, so we're doing 255.255.255.0. And then I'll do the same thing for VLAN 20. Create the VLAN, create the SVI, and then set the IP address to 192.168.20.1, okay? And then let's go to VLAN 30, interface VLAN 30. It's very important you make that distinction between just creating a VLAN and creating the SVI, okay? So let's go VLAN 30 is going to be .30.1 and enter. So that's done. So if I try to see what the IP address of this guy is 192.168.10.10. If I try to ping this PC from VLAN 20, we should be able to get in if I have configured it correctly. Let's go ping here. All right, so we can see that we're able to ping from PC3 here in the VLAN 20 to VLAN 10. So that just tells you that the inter-VLAN routing is working, okay? So our VLANs are able to communicate, okay? Now, the next thing, or the really the biggest thing, because these guys, right now, they're only able to communicate with PCs on this switch, okay? So like VLAN 20 can ping VLAN 30, but they cannot communicate with any other VLANs outside of, outside of their switch. So to make that happen, we're going to use dynamic routing, okay? We're going to use OSPF, okay? So this is just kind of a project showing you how inter-VLAN routing works and also how dynamic routing works, okay? So if I think I have OSPF configured in the switches we're going to verify, but let's start with this switch right here, okay? I'm going to go exit here, and then I just want to show you guys this. So what I have already prepared is an MOP, okay? So this is something that you'd see network engineers use really on a day-to-day basis, right? To make configurations, make changes to the network. So the MOP pretty much is a document that has the configurations entered, so you don't have to manually enter every single command on the switch or on the router, right? Or any device that you're really trying to configure. So you create MOPs to cut down the time it takes to really complete configurations, and also it's just a more effective, and also helps you reduce errors in your configs. So pretty much, this is the OSPF config for the router, the layer 3 switch that I was just looking at. So if I were to just copy this, I'll be able to paste it in the CLI. Excuse me. I'll be able to paste it in the CLI with no issues. Okay. So, let's make sure everything's correct here. So this is configure terminal, right? And then I'm saying router OSPF1, router ID, network. Okay, so this is very important. I actually didn't put this in. So we're going to be in area 0 for OSPF. This is going to be a single area OSPF configuration. Let's do area 0. Oops, area 0. Okay. So pretty much, configure terminal, router OSPF1. We give it a router ID. As you can see, I already kind of labeled the router ID on each router. I'm calling them a router because they're doing router tasks and responsibilities. So, create the OSPF, and this is how you create OSPF on each device. Okay, so you go give it a process ID, usually one. You can use that uniform if you're in a single area OSPF, right? And then the router ID is always unique. So two routers cannot have the same router ID. Okay, that'll cause issues. That's usually a troubleshooting task. Sometimes you have to figure out why OSPF is not working, and you realize that you kind of gave you gave two routers the same router ID. So I want to watch out for that. And then over here is where we're pretty much advertising the networks that we're trying to let other routers know about. Okay, so if you look at this, we're start from the bottom here. So we have the 192.168.0.0. I'm just summarizing there for all the subnets on the VLANs on that switch, which is a .10, .20, and the .30. Okay, so the /16 subnet mask covers that. Okay, so pretty much we're saying network, whatever network, whatever IPs are assigned to these VLANs or these devices in these VLANs would fall into here. Okay, so that way other routers are able to learn that, and creates the dynamic routing where we're able to go across the network. Okay, and then another important concept is the link of the router, like the interface itself. So if we look right here, this is going to be, let me just do this, G02 on this router. So you always want to advertise whatever the link is directly connecting to another OSPF router. Okay, so if I go in here and I do let's do a show. Oh, okay. So we can see we can see our SVIs here. Okay, okay, and then, oh, I haven't configured. Okay, yeah. So actually, sorry. Let's go configure the interface. Okay, so we know that this is G02. Let's go back to the terminal. All right, I'm gonna do interface. Oops. So first thing, interface G02. All right. To put an IP address on this port, I have to enter another command, right? I have to say it's not a switch port, and I do that by saying no switch port on the interface. Okay. That way I'm able to add an IP address. So if I don't do that, it wouldn't let me add an IP address because this is a layer 3 switch. This is not a typical router. Okay. So I do IP address 10.10.10.2 because I'm sorry, this is gonna be 10.10.10.1 because I already have it labeled here, so I know what the IP is. And then you want to enter the subnet mask 252. That's a /30 a point-to-point connection. All right, so that's done for that. And then also the other side over here. And the reason why we're doing this is because of OSPF. Okay, guys. So this is so what I'm looking for. G01. All right, let's go into G01. And we're gonna do the same thing. Okay, and make it a router port. We're gonna say no switch port, and then also give it an IP address. So this is gonna be 10.10.20. And it's also a .1. Okay, so boom, that's good. Let's see if it forms any adjacencies while I'm waiting here. See if I can fast forward this a little bit. No adjacencies formed yet. Well, I haven't configured OSPF yet. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. But all right, so we have the interfaces configured. Okay. Now what we want to do is configure OSPF. Okay. So let's go get out of the interface. And one more command. This is actually very important on the layer 3 switch. Anytime we're trying to do some dynamic routing or maybe even static routing on it, you always have to enter the IP routing command on the device. Okay. That way it enables that function. Okay. So now we're going to create OSPF. All right. Let me get my mop here. It's over. So this is our mop. Pretty much this will do everything. Okay. Instead of trying to enter in the commands one after the other. So obviously you can see here that I'm missing a couple things. So I'm going to enter the wildcard mask. Another important concept there is the wildcard mask for OSPF. When you're trying to advertise a network, you want to enter the IP address and the wildcard mask, not the subnet mask, not the typical, subnet mask of like. Usually this would be a 255.255.0.0, but with the wildcard mask, it's kind of like the inverse of that. Okay. And I can make a different video going deeper into that at a later time. But yeah, let's just go ahead and so I have this. I have my router ID. I have my process ID. I have my network statements. Okay. We can go ahead and just copy that and paste. Okay. So I'm just waiting to see if it forms any adjacencies. All right, nice. So you guys can see that we do have one adjacency formed with the 3.3.3 router. See, can you see this? Okay. Well, actually, let me move this over a little bit. Okay, nice. Okay, so you guys can see that we formed an adjacency with 3.3.3, which is this guy right here. Okay. And the reason why we're able to do that is because this is already configured with OSPF. Okay. But then I went in and put in a network statement for the interface from router 1, and that let router router network 3 know that, it's trying to form an adjacency. So the OSPF state changed from loading to full, okay? Um, and you can see that we haven't formed an adjacency with this guy over here. That's because we have to still go in and configure, bring this over here. So if I do a show run, I already have the SVIs on this L3 switch. I have the access ports configured, but I don't have OSPF, okay? All right, now let's go do OSPF. This is not a complete OSPF configuration, so I'll make changes. I have my OSPF process ID. I have the router ID. So this is 3.3, this is 1.1, and this is 2.2.2. Okay? And then the network statement is missing the area. So area 0, very important. And this guy's missing the wildcard mask 0.0.3 and area 0. And this guy's missing the area, so area 0. Okay, that's pretty much it. And then, oops, I just want to copy and paste. So just going over this one more time, make sure everything looks good. Okay, we're good. Let's go ahead and enter the commands on here. All right, so it's boom. Nice. So now we can see we formed an adjacency with 3.3. Let's see if we form an adjacency with 1.1.1. Okay, right there. So it came up. So we just formed adjacencies with this layer 3 switch and this layer 3 switch, okay? So now we should be able to ping across the network. Now let me go over here to PC11, which is on VLAN 60. Get the IP. Let's go to PC0. And I should be able to ping. Okay, so there you go. The reason why we're able to ping right now is because of OSPF, okay? If OSPF wasn't configured or there was no any type of routing configured, then we would not be able to communicate across the network. We would only be able to communicate inside of the switch that we're on, okay, due to Inter-Vlan routing, okay? And yeah, that's pretty much Inter-Vlan routing. I could test one more PC here from VLAN 40. As you can see, this has a different IP address, different gateway from VLAN 60 that we're trying to get to. So let's do a ping. Okay, it's pretty fast. But yeah, that's pretty much it. If we go in here, exit, let's do show you the routing table. Okay, guys. So another thing to kind of look out for is the routing table. We can see our connector routes over here, and we can see the OSPF routes labeled O, right? Excuse me. But yeah, so it tells us OSPF, the SVI, we're going to this SVI from here. So these are the networks that are being advertised from this router, okay? I'm sorry. Wait. Oh, no. So it's pretty much everything, really. These are connected routes. I apologize. Right, so you can see the connected routes for the VLANs that are directly connected in here or directly configured in here, okay? And these are the OSPF routes that have been learned from the OSPF routers in the network. Okay. But yeah, that's it's pretty much Inter-Vlan routing and OSPF. Uh, see, 23 minutes. Okay. I hope you guys have learned something from this. If you have any questions, just put it in the chat. I'll do my best to answer. Um, if you want this OSPF lab, just let me know. But that's pretty much all I had, guys. Thank you for watching, and